Hi everyone, welcome back and let's continue our series on cloud computing with Amazon Web Services. In this video, we're going to be talking about CI/CD. So CI/CD stands for Continuous Integration and Continuous Delivery. It is basically an automated process of testing, building, and releasing software products without much manual effort. So this has two parts, CI and CD. So CI deals with continuous integration. That means, developer or like a technical people, they commit changes and then they test it, build it, and produce some form of artifact. So this is basically a packaging format that we are going to deploy to our server. All right, and then code deploy basically does the deployment process. The particular artifact that we store is going to be deployed to the server. All right. So as a developer, we commit changes to our code repository. So this can be like a GitHub, a Bitbucket, or like some provider specific like AWS CodeCommit. And then this actually triggers our pipeline, and then what we can do here is we can do testing, building, and then basically like we can produce some form of artifact. So this is a packaging format. For example, if we talk about Java application, it is going to be jar, and then if we talk about containerized world, it could be Docker image, and then we can store in some artifactory. So there are some popular artifactory. For example, JFrog is one of them. It's a really popular artifactory. And then some provider, they have their own artifactory. For example, AWS has S3, and then it depends on the platform we use. And then we can also have our own artifactory, right? That's fine. And this is where all of the output actually get stored. And then the code deploy, basically the deployment process, will pull that artifact from the artifactory and then deploy it to the server. All right, this server could be Amazon EC2, for example, your one server, um, or it could be Elastic Beanstalk, which we are gonna use on this tutorial. And we also have some provision to roll back. Let's say you deploy it and then you want to roll back to the previous version because something went wrong or something unexpected happened, and then we have a provision of rolling back. And it is always not automatic from end to end. Sometimes you might introduce some manual review process, so we can inject that as a stage, right? So this is where we can basically interrupt and then review the changes produced by code build, and then if everything looks good, we are going to be deploying it to the server. So basically we can just approve it, and the software gets delivered to the client, or right to the end user. That's the basic idea behind CI/CD. And then we will set up this exact pipeline. I mean, most of the stages will be covered in this tutorial. All right, now time to get some hands-on with this workflow. All right, so first of all, go ahead and type code pipeline on console. Um, Code pipeline, and then you will be redirected to here. All right, so let's go ahead and see what we need as a prerequisite. For example, before setting the entire pipeline, we need some of the component to be set up already, right? For example, we need to have a repository. So I'm going to be using AWS CodeCommit. So AWS CodeCommit is just a repository provided by AWS. So just go to CodeCommit and then type your repo. So my CI/CD repo, for example, and then I'm going to create this. All right. So this repository has been created, and then I'll copy it and clone it on my computer. All right. All right. So I'm going to clone the repository. I'm just going to paste that link, and look at this. So we have successfully created our repository here, and it's currently empty. Perfect. And we also need some code. I'm going to be using like this basic Java code, so you don't need to worry about like, because I'm using Java. If you're not familiar with Java, that's perfectly fine because it's just to demonstrate CI/CD. So we'll be taking these changes into the CI/CD, so or to the server. So I'm going to use this code as a reference. All right, let me copy it So we have copied the source code here and we'll be using this to deploy it to our server. So it's a typical Java and Spring Boot application. All right. So we can close this and then we will push it later. And so what else we need? We basically need this code build. For example, because when we create a pipeline, we have to select the code build instance as well, right? So I'm going to be creating a code builder. Right, so let's create a code build project first. This is basically like a building process. So what I'm going to do is click on this build project and then my CI/CD code builder. And for additional setting, we don't need anything here. Source provider, and this is going to be code commit. And then we have to select the repository that we created, right? So that's why we created this repository before. And then for a branch, okay, so we should have main branch. I don't know why we don't have it. Branch, code to build. Let me type. Okay, main. All right, so looks like we have to push something. So what I'm gonna do here is I want to uh, commit the changes. For example, we have copied a lot of code here, so I'm going to add it and then git commit. I'll just write a simple message and then git push. All right, so I'm going to push this to the code commit. Okay, and then if I refresh it now, okay, my code builder, and so provider, it's going to be AWS code commit. We can also use GitHub because we have option for GitHub, and then Bitbucket as well, but just going with AWS code commit makes sense here, since we are using code pipeline provided by AWS. All right, and then repository, my CI/CD, and then here is a branch. We can use main, right? Because we are currently on main branch, git branch. All right, that makes sense. And okay, and then you can just choose this, and compute is EC2, and then we are running on EC2 instance. All right, and then what is the image type? So that means the command that we are going to provide is going to be running on EC2 instance directly. And for example, we can write CI/CD, just append it. It's a role because it needs some permission. And then so this is important because what do you want in the build spec? For example, we are going to we can paste the command right here, but we are going to provide a file. All right, so the build spec file is a ml formatted file that instructs what are the steps that we are going to take. For example, if I go here and show you the build spec file that I have prepared, for example, what is the Java version? So we are going to specify we need Java 21. So I've used Java 21. And then the commands in install phase, what are the commands? We are going to use maven install. So basically it downloads the dependencies, and then I have skipped the test. That's fine. And pre-build. So what is the command that we are going to use before building, right? So I'm just like writing some dummy commands. For example, echo, and then it just does the Java version sake. That's all. And then during the build phase, what are we going to do? Map and clean package. So this is the command. For example, if I go here in Java, map and clean package, so it produces jar file. So this is maven specific. You don't need to worry about this. And then for post build, eco build completed. So if you might have like a lot of commands here, especially in production application, that's fine. And then artifacts, what to include, we are going to include like the whatever inside of this target, because every jar file will be inside of this target folder in Spring Boot application. All right, and then this is something related to caching, so you don't need to worry about this. You just I'll provide this GitHub repository, so if you want to go with this, you can use the same build spec file, right? So we are going to use build spec file, and this has to be on the root of the repository. All right, so you cannot write inside of a certain folder. It will be looking at this root folder. All right, and we are going to be using that. And then if you want to name it differently, for example, instead of build spec, you wrote builder.ml, you can override here. All right, but we are going to leave it as a default. And then artifact. So for example, where do we want to store artifact? We are going to give some bucket name. For example, okay, I will give this, we are in us is 2, so I'll be using us is to this bucket. So this is where the artifact is going to be stored. And then name of the folder or compressed folder in bucket that will contain your output artifacts. All right, so builds. All right, builds, this is just additional configuration, so you don't need to even write it. And artifact packaging, so do you want zip file? Yes, this zip file. And then additional configuration, do you have anything? No. Cache type, this is just advanced configuration, so we're going to leave it as default. And I'm going to create a build project. All right, it will take a couple of seconds most probably. All right, so looks like the path naming build slash was wrong. Let me try with the new rule, or we can actually choose CICD, for example. Yes, this one. Okay, and let me create this. All right, so the error was, I added extra slash there. So this code build project is actually ready, right? We have configured this. And then one more thing is, if we go here, we need some server to be ready. All right. And then I told you that I'm going to use Elastic Beanstalk. So let's go ahead and quickly create that. I'm going to the console. And if you don't know how to create Elastic Beanstalk, so I have a detailed video on my channel. So I'll link that video in the description below. Elastic Beanstalk. Right, so just head over to Elastic Beanstalk console and then create a application. All right, so just choose web server. I will link that video if you want to learn more about it, but we will keep quickly spinning up an application here. All right, and then my web server CI/CD, this is the application name. And then, for example, this can be dev environment. All right, dev environment CI/CD. All right, and then if you want to give some a domain, like you can do there. And then, for example, as a platform, this is important to choose. We'll be using Java 21, so which is fine. And then sample application, basically we'll be using the exact code through CI/CD, so we're not going to upload here our own code at this time. And then just choose the single instance free tier eligible. All right, that's the cost effective one. And then here, service role, for example, you can have like a lot of service role. For example, what I can do is I can choose the service role right here. Otherwise, if you don't have it, you can just go to create a role, and then it will actually pre-select everything you need. Just go next, and then next, and then create it. So you don't actually need to do anything, just give a name, that's fine. And then you can just refresh here, for example, like this. And then I'm gonna select the already created just to save some time, and then go to next step. All right, and then if you want, you can choose your VPC and things like that, but I'm just going to leave it as a default. All right, next one. And then here these are instance information. For example, I'll just stick with the basic one. um, the security, I'm not sure if we ever need it. I'll just leave it as default, no security. And then since we're not going to use auto scaling group, you can just leave it as default as well, on demand. And here most probably I'll just choose micro, t2 micro, because it's pretty eligible as far as I know. And then I'm going to next step. All right, and then just basic. And we are not going to do anything here, so just leave it as default. Yep, that's fine. And let's create this one. So it will take a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, we can continue our code pipeline. All right, so basically at this point we have set up this server. We also have this code build, so we are actually choosing this code deploy to the server, so we don't need a separate code deploy stage here because we are going to be creating that through the code pipeline. All right, let me create a pipeline, and then we're going to be using custom pipeline because we are going to set up everything. And my CI/CD pipeline, and then you can just keep a new role. If you have existing, just create it. Yes, allow it. And if we have anything in advanced setting, no we don't, we can just go ahead and click it. And then here as a source provider, we're going to be choosing AWS codecommit, definitely, in this repository. And then as a brand's name, we are going to be using main brands. All right, and then okay, just go ahead, and if you want, enable automatic retry on stage failure. So this all depends on your need. And then let's go ahead and create next. And then here, in the build stage, what we are going to do is we are going to choose other build providers and code build. And then we're going to use the code build that we just created, right? That's why I created this in advance. Okay, and perfect. The reason is the Ohio. That's fine. And then let's go ahead and click next. All right, so this testing stage is, like for example, you have some UI testing and those kind of things needed, you can click here, but we are not going to deal with the explicit testing here, right? And then I'm going to skip this uh, stage. And then in deploy stage, for example, we are going to use Elastic Beanstalk. All right, um let me see if this was created. Okay, so this environment was created. Let me click on this, and then we will see a basic wizard or basic UI. This is automatically launched by AWS. Once we deploy, it will change. So I'm going to choose Elastic Beanstalk and the application name, my web server CI/CD, and then dev environment. All right, and next. So basically now at this point, we have instructed, okay, please deploy, choose this code build from this particular repository that we configured earlier, and then deploy it to this Elastic Beanstalk. Okay, perfect. That's a concept of CI/CD. And let's create a pipeline. All right, congratulations. The pipeline has been created and this is currently in progress, right? So this is basically fetching the source code, and then it will do the build stage here, and then this will finally deploy to Elastic Beanstalk. All right, so the source, this stage has already been completed. Look at this, this succeeded. Interesting. And then it is currently in progress. All right, so the our CI/CD, the first CI/CD is actually up and running. It may take a while. It does take a while. And then if you go here, you can see some spinning icon here. So this is build, and then this is deploy, and this is source. All right, so the build was succeeded, and then this was the deployment was failed, right? I think it's because of permission. All right, so this is basically about the permission, right? So the CI/CD, we didn't add the permission to deploy to our Elastic Beanstalk. So let's go ahead and add that permission so that it can execute it. All right, settings, service role, click on this. All right, in this permission, just go here and attach policies, and then choose Elastic Beanstalk. Sorry, Elastic Administrator Access Elastic Beanstalk. Just choose this to make it easier. And now if I go back, since we have added permission, now it should be good. And then if I retry this stage, you can retry here. It should actually deploy to our Elastic Beanstalk. All right, so it's currently running. It's only running the deploy stage because we rerun it. Meanwhile, so let's take the AWS S3, for example. It should store that the output file into the AWS S3 Artifactory. All right, So yes, three here. This would be code pipeline, for example. It was created yesterday. I'm not sure which one did we select. Maybe this one is the one we selected. Let me check. Okay, and then so what is the my CI/CD pipeline? And if we go here, build artifact, and then you can see the last modified, it's February 11, so it's today. And then there we go, so we have the artifact right here. All right, so this was stored here, so that means this part, the building and storing into this AWS S3 has been completed as expected. All right, and then the one. Okay, so let's go ahead and see whether we can actually access our code. For example, if we go here and see something, you know, currently it's green stays, that means everything is working as expected. All right, and then if we go here and then refresh it, now we should have some different output, right? This is what we actually had in our application, so it should say welcome everyone. All right, let's see if it does. Welcome everyone. Look at this. This is beautiful. Our CI/CD actually deployed to the Elastic Beanstalk environment. All right. And then we have another endpoint called /CI/CD. For example, if you go here, it should say, welcome to the world of CI/CD. Let's check it. CI/CD, and boom, so everything is working as expected. All right, so the CI/CD basically we committed certain change, and then it triggered the pipeline, and then the code build actually is to produce the artifact and is stored in S3, and then this is pulling from the S3 and then deploying it. All right, the one quick information that I wanted to give you is we have IAM users, for example. And so just click on the IAM users that you are currently using. And then, if you go here and security credential, you need to give some permission, for example, credential to generate um, username and password for accessing code commit, right? So just go ahead and do generate credentials. It might ask you to enter username and password, right? So I've already created that, that's why it didn't ask me. But you might be prompted, and you will definitely be prompted if it is your first time. All right, just go ahead and generate username and password, I mean credential, and then it will generate username and password. And then when you clone or push, it might ask you to enter username and password. So this is where you enter that. All right, that was just a quick knowledge. And so basically what we have done here is we have set up this entire flow, right? So we haven't done this, for example. All right, and let me, for example, add something here into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code, and then we are going to push one change. Okay, all right, and what I'm gonna do here is, instead of like a message we have now, I'm going to slightly change it. Okay, hello everyone, welcome everyone. All right, so I'm just, instead of welcome everyone, I'm going to write warm welcome everyone, and then git add everything, and then git commit. So I'm not going to worry about message here, just to be quick, and then just going to push it, and then it should actually now trigger the pipeline. All right, let's see that it did push, and then our pipeline should now trigger. Look at this, and so it may take a couple of seconds to trigger. All right, now it's in progress, that means it was triggered. And then if you want to see what changed, you can go ahead and click on this. So this is the details. For example, we changed this one. Okay, perfect. And this is currently in progress. Let me click here, and the code commit, so the source was successful, and then currently building the changes. And let me click on this, and if we can see any information here. Okay, build logs. All right, so you can see all the build stages. For example, running Maven install the escape test. This is something that we have defined in our build spec.ml file. And if we look at that file, for example, and we have build completed, for example, or verifying Java version. Yeah, verifying. Look at this. So verifying Java version, it is echoing that information right here, right? So you can see all the logs, everything, and the build succeeded, and then so even it uploaded the artifacts, right? So it has like a lot of details of the build. All right, and then that means these actually got completed. The build has already been completed, and then even the deployment was successful. All right, and then if I now go here, oh, it should give the same output. This is where we changed, and then it says warm welcome everyone, right? So good job, we have done great. And then what I wanted to show here is like introducing a manual stage. All right, so this is basically a stage, and then in AWS we can add an stage. All right, so in AWS we can add a stage here, and this is going to be manual intervention. All right, and then I'm just going to edit this pipeline. And so if you go here, and then we have like currently we have source stage, and then build stage, and then deploy stage. And then if you want to add some stage before build, after source, you can add here. I'm going to add after build and before deploy. All right, so stage name, my review stage, and then click on stage, and then my review. And then here you can add some failover condition, etc. But I'll be using action group, and then a review action group, and then action provider. This is where you actually choose. You can have a lot of action group. You can use commands, ECR, whatever could build, but I'm going to use manual approval. All right, and then everything I'm going to leave default, and then done and done, and then just save it. Okay, save it, and look at this. So, and then if I go here and change some code, well, welcome everyone, and then manual review, and then I'm going to add everything to the git repository. Okay, git commit or I can just select the previous commands, and then now it is going to push the changes, and then it did. And then now the pipeline should be triggered again. Okay, all right, it says just now, it means it already succeeded, and then currently in build stage. All right, you can do horizontal if you want, you can go vertical if you want, whichever you like. All right, so this is currently in building phase, and then it will do the building process again, and then it will stop right here. All right, the build has been successful, and then it's currently in manual or my review stage. All right, so it's now review in review action group. And look at this. So since we introduced manual intervention here, it is actually paused. All right, so it says manual approval. So it's not going to execute here. In only 3 minutes ago, it's not getting executed because we introduced this one. And then if I go here, click, it says pending. So if you click here, it says pending, and then if I go here and then approve, and I say looks good, right? So you can see all the CloudWatch log events and so on. It's definitely before you approve, you can see whatever you want. Okay, but I'm not going to do anything, just looks good, and then submit, and now it should actually trigger. All right, so this is getting approved, and then it will be, this final stage will be executed. All right, this succeeded. Review action has been completed, and then it is currently deploying to the Elastic Beanstalk. Look at this. All of these stages have been completed, and if we go ahead and refresh here, we should see something, something different. All right, the message we wrote later. All right, boom. So manual review, it has been actually populated and has been released by the CI/CD pipeline. All right. So that's great. We have done everything here. All right. So the one thing that we haven't done is this rollback. All right. And let's do that. For example, I wrote a manual review, right? But I want to undo that. I just want to stick with the previous one, right? So this is where we can use some rollback feature. For example, let me go back and then click here. And then if you go to history, this is you can basically see 3 minutes, 1 minute, and 2 minutes. So for example, if you go here, what was the change here? Yeah, a manual review. That means okay, let me close this. This should have been the change we wanted, for example. Yes, so I want to go here. This means what I'm gonna do is just rerun this, or rerun this. Let me run this. So, and this is yes, so we are going to release it. So basically this change is now going to be released. All right, so we are going to roll back the current change to the previous one. Okay, let's go to pipeline, and then it succeeded now, and it is going to run the same stage again and again. We are already familiar with this. All right, the build succeeded, and then it's currently in pending state, so I will have to manually approve it. um, Rolling back, in production, definitely we are going to write a clear message here, and then I'm going to submit it, and then it's going to trigger this deploy stage. All right, everyone. So everything got succeeded here. We have completed all of the four stages. And then if I go here and then click on it, so we should be back to the previous stage. So possibly this one, welcome everyone. All right, no, we did not. So that means we made some mistake here. All right, to roll back, looks like we have to go to history and then, select this, for example, and rerun. And then here, I would like to provide something. Okay, changed. We could have we actually gave like the changed to every single command, right? So I'll just do commit. So we are good getting back to the first one, and then I will release it. Okay, so it's going to be the first one, but that's fine, right? In production, we'll be writing a clear message, commit history, so that we can distinguish which one is the commit that we want to go back to, and this will trigger a pipeline, and it will take a couple of moments. All right, I'm going to approve it, approve, and then no commit, no message there, and then it will act, and then it is going to trigger it. I just approved. All right, so everything is green. That means everything has been successful. And if I click here, it should actually revert back to the first one. All right, now it does, and it says welcome everyone, which was our first version, right? So it definitely depends which version you want to go to, right? But this was to illustrate a rollback, which is working as expected. All right, so we've done great, and then we have actually set up this complete pipeline here, so using AWS, right? So we committed changes to this code repository, and then it triggered rules, and then we built it, and then we stored in our artifactory. We introduced this manual step, and then we actually deployed to the server, right? This is basically a complete CI/CD workflow. Definitely in production you will have a lot of things, but this is the idea behind CI/CD. So that was pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, but before you close this, if you have done hands-on with me, please don't forget to terminate all these environments. All right, for example, I will go here and then delete this pipeline. Okay, otherwise it will have some cost in your account. Perfect. All right, so I'll turn off all of the environments, for example, Elastic Beanstalk as well. If you want, you can go here and then just delete application, and then dev env cicd. Oh, sorry, this is the one. and delete it. So terminating this environment is going to take a few maybe minutes, but yeah, we are almost done. I will delete other resources, but make sure you delete everything you have created to avoid extra cost. All right guys, that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please write down in the comment section and I'll be more than happy to answer. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.